Hello and welcome back to the Fish and Chip podcast. I'm your host Fish.
And I'm your host Chips. In this episode of the podcast, we're going to discuss season 1 and 2 of The 100 and give our reactions and theories about it. So basically, it's set 97 years in the future.
Yeah.
When 97 years, it's based in 100 years in the future, and 97 years ago there was a nuclear strike on the Earth.
Well, it's like an all-out nuclear war.
A nuclear Armageddon.
That's what it said in the start,
decimated planet Earth. And so the only civilization left is on the Ark, which it has 12 international space stations where they're orbiting together at once.
Yeah, because they all come together they show flashbacks to this, but all the space stations come together to survive and kind of leave behind the idea of nations and become one people. By the time that we get to 97 years in the future, all of the different groups are integrated together and it's kind of just one. They're just the Ark. They're not different nations anymore. They're just the Ark and that's it.
So what happens here is it's basically they're so strict on population up there that basically they had to increase the they had to try their best to decrease population, and in doing so it affected the criminals. So even if you stole an apple, your sentence was going to be getting floated,
which is essentially getting thrown into space.
Yeah. So but the only exception is for those under 18.
Yeah.
So once you turn 18, you get tried for questioning. But before that, before that they're just imprisoned.
Yeah.
And basically, because population is so severe up in the Ark now, because decreasing oxygen, the Chancellor orders basically sends 100 prisoners into back to Earth.
Yeah, to see if it's inhabitable.
See if it's inhabitable. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, we're introduced with a variety of characters in the first episode. We've got Clark, Abby, who contrast each other. Their mother and daughter anyway, so it's kind of easy to get contrast between them. And then there is Kane, who's the deputy to the Chancellor, with Wells on Earth contrasting him, basically kind of seen as two
Bellamy.
Bellamy. Who did I say?
You said Wells.
Oh geez.
Yeah. So we're introduced a lot of characters in the first episode. So because the show is kind of split into two different places in the first season.
Yeah.
We get there's a
lot going on. Yeah. So we're going to stick to focus points in this episode. So as I said, this is a spoiler. So anyone who's watching this, we'd expect that you've seen this.
Or that you just don't care about spoilers.
Or
maybe you're kind of thinking about watching season 5, but you don't want to watch the rest of the seasons, or because especially season 1 is kind of it's an okay introductory season, but it's not great in comparison to the rest of the season. So if you were to if you want just a synopsis of the first season because you not bothered watching it, or of every season because you wanted to just watch season 5, that's kind of what we're doing here. So our 4 kind of major talking points are the meeting of the 100 with the people, the inhabitants of the Earth, because although the grounders, because although at the start of the show they don't think that there are people on Earth, it actually turns out that there are people that have been living there for the last 97 years.
Basically, the idea is that the grounders are there, and we don't know how they survived.
Yeah, exactly. So then there's also kind of, because we're just gonna go through the points and then talk about them in depth. So then there's also the death of a major character, Wells, by this kid, which is probably the worst moments in the show, but we're gonna get into that in a second. There's interactions between the 100 and a grounder, Lincoln, who's kind of an outsider in his people, and then there's the cliffhanger at the end of the season. So we're going to start off with the first big talking point, which is the first meeting with the grounders.
Yeah.
So
basically we get started up. They stand out for the first few episodes as characters that are in the background. You just know they exist, but you don't see much of them. The whole thing, episode 1, you just get you get Jasper basically getting shot with an arrow, and basically them cure his wound, but they only send off a warning, and you didn't really see the Grounders themselves. You always see them like in the back picture. The 100 haven't properly seen the inhabitants yet.
Yeah.
In this one, and as it goes through the episode, you start to see more and more of the Grounders. And that kind of goes into the Lincoln thing that we're going to be talking about later on. He's one of the first Grounders that we see.
Mm-hmm.
But what the big point with the Grounders was when we met up with what's her name?
Anya,
yeah.
The lead who's like the leader of the Grounders at the time. So they kind of, when you're first kind of starting out with the Grounders, there's a lot of like distrust between the Grounders and the 100, because the Grounders feel like the 100 are infringing on their territory, essentially, because they've landed in the middle of like a Grounder territory, but the 100 are just trying to survive and like trying to like see if the Earth is inhabitable for them. And the Grounders are like their big threat at this point in the show. So the first kind of introduction with the Grounders is like a really big moment, because like obviously for the audience, it's like the first time that we get to see them. But for the 100 themselves as characters, it's like at this point they think that no one else is on Earth, and it's like a big shock to the system. Like, and for the first time, other than like the actual environment itself, there's a massive threat to the survival of the 100. So then kind of after that, we'll talk about the death of Wells, who's essentially he is the son of the Chancellor.
Yeah, he was a very interesting character. He was only around for like 6 episodes.
Yeah. It was like 3. He died in episode 3. Yeah. So
it was episode 3.
When I first started watching the show, because Shane told me to watch it when we were at school, I first was talking about how Wells was like the only interesting character in the show at this point. I think I was 2 episodes in.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you were like gritting your teeth, like, oh no, that's not good for you. Like,
it was horrible. It was like, I was like, how can I sell a show to someone whose favorite character dies?
He's about to die. Yeah. I wouldn't say he was my favorite character, but he was the most interesting at this point. Like, he was the character where I was like, oh, his arc could be really interesting, because essentially on the arc, if you commit a crime, and you're over the age of 18, you get floated straight away, which essentially you get sent off into space to die horribly. And Wells' dad is the Chancellor, so he's the person that's in charge of like decided that people should die, because of the whole thing with resources on the Ark, where like air is so limited that you can't have like people that are like a drain to resources being on the Ark. So like even if you commit a crime of just stealing a piece of food, you'll get floated unless you're under the age of 18. So that's why a lot of the 100 harbor hatred for Wells or for Jaha, because
of the decisions he's
made.
Exactly,
because a lot of them as well, their parents were killed by him, like, because a lot of them are like orphans now because their parents were floated, and then they also went down the same path of like becoming criminals in the sense of like
a lot of them could have been just protesting, like
Clark, because her dad was floated. So there's a lot of like stuff with is Wells as bad as a dad, like how is he going to deal with like this new kind of, because he like there's a lot of heat on him, because he is like seen as the, like a link to all their problems almost.
But it was a wasted opportunity with Wells killing him off.
Oh, it was like because
the whole thing was that basically his storyline was that he kept a secret from Clark.
Yeah.
And basically she thought that he told he told his father, which he did not, but he kept the whole secret that Abigail was actually the one who did it, because he didn't want Clark to have to think badly, to think ill of her mother, like to be he thought it would be better that the hatred was driven towards him rather than her. And he's such an interesting character that he kept that whole secret. And the moment he gets really interested, the whole thing is she finally finds out what's happening next. Or they decide to kill him.
Yeah, exactly. Just in case, just backtracking for 2 seconds, if you're wondering what the secret was, it was essentially that Clark's dad intended to tell people that the air was low, and Abigail took the decision that like he couldn't do that, so then her husband died because of it. Like, so then they decided, as you were about to say, to kill Wells with the worst character in the show, who was a kid that couldn't act, was directed terribly. Her writing for her character was awful. She was like,
you could see what they were doing, but it wasn't working.
She was like a mental patient, boy.
Oh, it's like what you call it. Actually, one thing in that season that I know I'm going slightly off track, but I have to mention the one with the father and his daughter who with the dodgy eye.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
That was one of the best episodes.
That was really sad.
That was actually the saddest thing. That was the one thing that actually redeemed the show was that whole take. That was the one episode storyline that actually worked.
Yeah, in the first half of season 1, like where a lot of parents essentially decided to sacrifice themselves.
Yeah.
So that their kids could live for longer with the oxygen that they had spare. Like they essentially like got flowed themselves or like went into a room and all the oxygen was taken out.
Yeah.
I actually forgot about that moment. It's been a while.
That's why I was like, I better mention that one. Because that's the one episode you kind of have to mention for a good one. But basically, there's not much to talk about with the Charlotte character. She was pointless. Yeah. The whole thing was just that it was just a wasted opportunity with Wells, and that's the one reason why season 1 is
one of the reasons. That was like the worst. I feel like that was. The whole Charlotte character and killing off Wells and stuff was the low point for the show.
Yeah.
But like a lot of shows don't have their low point in the first couple episodes, and like that could almost be a death sentence to a lot of shows. But just the show just goes from strength to strength every season. Like now.
Yeah.
After this, like I feel like it was like as the creators have said a lot, like Jason Rothenberg has said a lot. Like there was a lot of early growing pains. They made a lot of mistakes at the start, but the show starts to take a bit of an upturn then with the next talking point, which is interactions with Lincoln, who is a grounder.
Yeah, but for most of season 1, we don't even get proper talks from him. Like,
but I feel
get a bit like towards the end of the season, it's like Finn developed a relationship with Lincoln, but seeing that he's kind of like he's caring for Octavia. He's at least he's got some humanity in him, like and stuff. And even though he was tortured for the whole. He seemed like such a villain. How he was, kept so secret, and but he was a loyalist.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. It's like not everyone that's a grounder is evil. Like how not everyone who's part of the ark isn't evil. Like
well, he was banished from his own people. I can't remember why exactly for it. That doesn't really matter. It's kind of a moot point.
Do with it was to do with Octavia. I remember.
Yeah. But so essentially, like, the most interesting thing with Lincoln's character when he first gets introduced is to see how people react to him. So the different reactions you kind of get is like Bellamy just wants to outright kill him straight away.
Yeah,
he's like, this guy's a threat, and like Bellamy at this point, because we haven't really talked about him too much, is kind of like the de facto leader of the 100 at the start. So he's like the oldest member. Because I think he's the only person over the age of 18.
Yeah, Bellamy is. Yeah,
he is. Yeah. Because all the rest of the characters are like 17, kind of on the edge of 18, like a lot of them. But Bellamy himself is kind of like this. Because he kind of gets on to protect his sister on the thing on the he gets onto the 100.
Yeah, he gets onto the ship with the 100 because of it.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of interesting arcs with him, so we're not going to get too into
we will not in this season anyway. Like he has more moments in later seasons, but so it's kind of interesting to see, like, because he sees everything as a threat. He wants to kill Lincoln. Clark she also kind of wants to kill Lincoln, but she wants to get information from him first because she's kind of like you're
the whole thing is Lincoln was withholding the information.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And basically they were like, the whole thing was that all they had to do was show a bit of humanity, and he probably would have helped him out.
Exactly.
And the only one who could actually convince him was Octavia. And although at the same time it kind of contradicts what I just said there, but the only she harmed herself, which was the only way he actually
would do it. Yeah, because he cared about her. Was because it was an outsider in her own people, because she like had been kept hidden for years, because like the Ark had a policy of you only have one kid per person. It's like how in China it's one kid per family. So she was kept hidden for years because of that. So she was an outsider herself, and she also, because Lincoln was an outsider in his society, they kind of came together because of that, and like formed this really good relationship, like really interesting dynamic between the two characters that really like developed her character a lot.
Despite Lincoln being the only good, grounder connection they had, there was no preventing the cliffhanger now, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
Good Parkers and the
good old cliffhangers.
Cliffhangers, yeah. But the cliffhanger was actually really good. I'm not a huge fan of some cliffhangers, how they leave it off. But they left in the whole decision of button pressing, which is every season, which they did for season 1 to 3 of pushing a button.
Press a button.
And
you kind of see that in season 4 too. Like, I mean, you know, like in a way, there was a lot of button presses.
Oh yeah, there was still a button. There was still one big button. Man.
Yeah,
but it wasn't as big as the season 1 to 3.
Big button to fix all your problems.
You know, but in this one they basically because Lincoln and Finn could not stop the war from happening, and basically they blew up a bridge to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually developed to an right war with the 100 and the Grounders. And the whole thing is they used the connection of the Reapers, remember that?
Yeah.
To kind of how they tried to stop the war, hold back the war was very interesting, because they were very close to getting slaughtered. They tried to leave the area and stuff, but they couldn't. So, but they got the Reapers to, attack the Grounders, even though the Reapers would attack anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the one way of surviving.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of things that lead into season 2.
Yeah.
They are the most into with the Reapers being a big point in leading season 2, and also the whole thing of where is Bellamy and Finn.
Yeah, because
left out
essentially, like when the 100 let off that explosion to like kill all the Grounders outside, Finn and Bellamy are AWOL, so like they have no idea where they are. They are somewhere outside. So after that, like, Clark wants to go off and find them, but unfortunately for her, she gets captured by the Mountain Men, which leads into season 2. So we're gonna get into season 2 now. So do you want to give us another spoiler-free synopsis, and then we'll go into detail afterwards?
Okay, so for season 2, so it picks up with the groups scattered after the fight, and basically the Ark is now on the ground after season 1, which is something we actually didn't talk about, but basically with the new arrivals, they start off with everyone meeting up with each other and trying to figure out where they are. There's a lot more dilemmas kind of occurred, and different the plots are more scattered than before, because there was only 2 storylines, and now this one it's like
5 or 6.
Everyone is everywhere. Sure, the first few episodes you don't even see Jaha.
Yeah. It's like a Game of Thrones type thing, like, as in terms of like the plot being very spread out. Like,
this is it's a synopsis you can't really give out as well as for the first season, because because you kind of know a lot from. Yeah. No.
There's like the season 1 like kind of sets up the world quite well. So like, although you get more like insight into like Grounder society in this season, not as much as say season 3, but like season 2 you get more insight into like Grounder society. And like you get to learn a bit about the City of Light, and like, or just the journey there and stuff. There's a lot of different things kind of going on. Yeah. So again, like, there's a lot more big moments in this than there is in the last season. So we're gonna try to focus on a couple of big ones. So the first big moment is like, so outside of, because we'll just mention this first. So the season starts with most of the members of the 100 that have survived the first season, like, being stuck in Mount Weather with the Mountain Men. So like, the Mountain Men are this group of people that have been living in this bunker for the last 100 years.
And they were rumored.
There was like hints to them in season 1,
and slight mentions, but you didn't know what they were. Yeah, you didn't know that they actually had technology and and stuff. And
they're like the most advanced group in the world at the moment. Like, they have like a lot of weapons. They're good for food and stuff. The one thing they don't have though is that they can't survive outside of the bunker with radiation. So like, they're kind of you at the start, you're not really sure what their plan is, so like Clark is kind of distrustful of them, and what happens kind of around the same time as well is Finn and Bellamy and John as well is there too at some point because of what happens in the village. I can't exactly remember when he meets up with them, but essentially Finn is starting to get really worried about what happened to the rest of the 100, especially Clark.
Yeah, he gets very paranoid and stuff, and you see this whole thing of, already where Clark is, and where they were little, and he's going on this like journey leading to nowhere, trying to find clues that actually have nothing to do with it, because there's this whole thing where he found someone for these people had Clark's clothes, which might be a reasonable thing to think that she might be, they might have an idea where she is, but they have no clue, so he's just following dead ends. And the whole thing is that he is so convinced that, they actually know something, that he just goes on a murderous kind of rampage.
Because this entire time he thinks that the Grounders have taken the rest of the 100 and not the Mountain Men. 'Cause he doesn't even know the Mountain Men exist at this point.
Yeah.
So he goes into this is probably, I would say that this is one of the moments where the show really flips on its head, where you kind of like, it's one of those things that the 100 does beautifully, where it always inverts your expectations and like you never know what's gonna happen, like, which is always a good thing for a show. So the first big moment where you kind of see this is with Finn going into a Grounder village, and because he's so paranoid and because he's starting to like see things and because he's so desperate, he ends up massacring a group of 19 Grounders, including children. Which becomes a massive contentious point for the rest of the season because of something that leads on as well, where Clark, when she finds out kind of what's happening with the Mountain Men, how the Mountain Men want to like kill all the 100 and take their blood so that they can transfuse their blood with the 100 blood so that they can. It's really convoluted.
Yeah.
It's essentially they want to take the blood of the 100 so that they can live on the ground because it will like make them immune to the radiation. Essentially. So there's kind of this whole thing where this kind of these two of our points kind of feed into each other, because our second point is the uneasy alliance between the Grounders and the Sky People.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of comes from Clark needing the Grounders to fight the Mountain Men because the 100 don't have the strength themselves, or like the Sky People as a whole, because obviously the people from the Ark have all come down now at this point. So that kind of leads into the only way this alliance can happen is if Finn dies, because he's massacred all these people, and he has to be the symbol of like, we can work together because we'll sacrifice the person that like did that bad thing to your people. So the way he's supposed to die is that it's like this Grounder tradition where you get cut by 100
blades.
Blood
must have blood, basically.
Yeah, so it's it's like the 100 blade cutting thing, where it's like, so it's a really painful way to die. Like, can you imagine getting cut by 100 blades? Like, it's something that takes like an hour to do.
The whole thing is that he's accounting for the suffering that he's caused. He's massacred of it. Basically, he killed off so many people that he has to feel the deaths of that many people.
Exactly, yeah.
Basically.
But so instead, Clark decides, because at this entire time she's trying to fight for him to live, she's trying to swap the two of them, but like nothing's working because like the Grounders want Finn's head, like.
Yeah.
So she decides instead to kill him. And that's like, so I was talking about how the massacre was a big moment for the 100. This is really the moment where the 100 became the show that it is today. Yeah. Like, where it showed that like, so they had killed Wells in season 1 and stuff. Like, we were talking about this earlier before the podcast, where like it was a mistake, but like in fairness to them, it was a ballsy move. It was just the wrong move to make at that time, and like we felt like afterwards they might try to go a lot safer with the show. But this showed that they weren't scared to kill off characters, because Finn was like one of the main 3 or 4 cast members at this point, like, and a big character, like not exactly an interesting character. Like, I thought he was quite bland, in fairness. Like,
oh yeah, but there was a lot of people really liked his character. Like.
Yeah, they did, but they decided to kill him off because they just thought that like it was the best thing for the show because he was almost like a symbol of.
It was kind of holding Clark back in a sense.
It really was, because she became a better character afterwards. But like, would you kind of say in a sense that it was like a symbol of like the teen drama element of the show was Finn's character? And when they killed him off, it was almost like they were shedding that image that people had about the show, where it's a CW teen drama, like they're all the same, blah blah blah. But this showed like, no, this show is different. It's about people surviving. It's not about like fucking love triangles and romance and stuff, because they had to have the love triangle between like which was never terrible, but I did feel like the show.
They always had. They still do. Like, it doesn't
at times, but it's not as bad as it's not. It's more realistic.
The whole thing is they're more open to it. They acknowledge that it's there, and the type of shows they don't like completely go away from their roots. Like, which is a good thing as well. Like, thing, at least own what you are. Like,
oh yeah, definitely. But I just like, I think the show really like started to become like better when they killed off Finn, like, which is like, because he wasn't like a terrible character, he was just like kind of meh, like, and it felt like they were really moving on when they killed him off, like, because
So will we go on to the Uneasy Alliance, because we've kind of
talked about it a bit,
kind of briefly, but after the thing with he was the part of the first Uneasy Alliance thing between them. He was the first corruption, but then the second thing was the meeting.
Yeah,
they had a tribe meeting with Clark as basically the leader of the Ark, because she kind of gained a reputation as the leader, even though she wasn't
Technically,
chancellor.
Bellamy was she wasn't the chancellor.
She wasn't the chancellor.
She wasn't even the leader of the 100 until like the end of the season.
Yeah.
Bellamy was more the leader, but she had gotten this reputation.
She gained a reputation
because of her relationship with Lexa, who was like the leader of the Grounders. They hadn't started a relationship at this point, but you could tell that there was like more to their relationship than meets the eye. As in, like there was a spark, like so. Because of that, like Clark kind of became the new leader of the 100.
And with that, they had the tribe meeting, which she was supposed to turn up for, and she basically she ended up hearing on because she got Bellamy as an informant to infiltrate the Mountain Men. He's finally on the inside, and he overheard a conversation of a missile attack on the tribe meeting. And basically, Clark had this whole decision of whether she was about to tell everyone, but she only told Lexa, and Lexa convinced her to just leave the meeting and just go, and just to not tell anyone, because this is actually going to make things worse. Them knowing about it, that it'll get Bellamy killed.
Yeah, like it's to keep his cover, like, you know.
Keep his cover, yeah. It was a big, like, I mean, like, it wasn't exactly an easy decision to make, but there was a good reason to be questionable of what she did.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole thing is, we got into, because of that uneasy alliance, it was, we got to, Clark realised that she's, you know, she could be worse than her mother in a sense, you know.
She started to kind of question her own morality, because she had always seen, like, when she found out what her mom did to her dad, like, she was disgusted with her mom, and she was like, how could someone do this? Mm-hmm. But then when she started to get put into these positions, she started to realize, oh, it's actually not so black and white. Like, there's a lot of, like, trying to make the hard choice because you want to protect people, or you want to help as many people as you can, but, like, all these decisions, like, you're gonna hurt someone. So, like, in a way, like, it was the right decision, but also, like, it was, like, you can see why people would be angry if they found out, and it was like this big secret for the rest of the season where people can't know that we did this.
So another betrayal we're going to get onto now will be what the Grounders did to the 100. Yeah. Basically, in the final, in the second last episode, they had the whole president. The president on the mountain, well, the one that was imprisoned, he basically gave in to his son eventually, and gave him a way of how he can stop the war between them and the Grounders. So basically, he gave his son this. So basically, what they did was they made an alliance with the Grounders, saying that they'll release everyone and they won't attack them anymore if they just call off the war, and which is what they did. So, but the Grounders, in doing so, the Grounders betrayed the Ark, because there was nothing in the agreement saying that the
people of the Ark
are free.
Yeah.
So that's where the betrayal left, and it's. Do you want to talk about that before we get into?
Yeah, I'll just kind of you've summarized it very well, so I'll just kind of say one or two things about it. It was kind of like it was a betrayal on so many levels, because it was a personal betrayal by Lexa on Clark.
Yeah.
But also just like a betrayal in general of like it's set back.
What they stood for as well. The Grounders kind of had their own like moral code, a questionable one. Yeah. They had their whole code in which they kind of betrayed themselves, even though not everyone was on board with the alliance with the Ark. They
still agreed to it as a group, like in general. Like, even though some people might have not been 100% on board, and it was like betraying your ally is like kind of goes against the code of what the Grounders stand for. But it was like for the Grounders, it was almost the right decision, because it's like it was the only way that they could make sure that all their people would be saved. Which, so in a way you can understand, especially because, so we haven't really talked about, we'll just mention the Reapers very briefly for like 2 seconds, and then we'll get on for the last talking point, because there's too much in each season of the 100 to talk about everything.
Yeah.
So, but like essentially they had been like Grounders have been taken for years and then turned into Reapers, which are like these drugged up versions of Grounders that essentially go around killing people and like taking more
Lincoln
Grounders.
Had an awesome arc in that.
He did, yeah. There's too many things we haven't even talked about. Jahan, John's arc. We might mention it we'll mention it in the next podcast actually, because we're going to be talking about that season 3 and 4 in the next one.
That's more a season 3 thing.
Well, it's
it develops in
the
season 2. The
biblical stuff is in season 2. We can always go back and mention it, but essentially, the Reapers had been like, it's just like essentially like Grounders have been taken from their families for years and turned into Reapers, and because the Mountain Men promised not to do that anymore, that's such a huge thing for the Grounders, because the Grounders can't be sure if they're going to win this war, and if they lose the war, this like this thing on their people, this like horrible pain that their people have been put through is going to continue. So it's understandable, but in a way it goes against the code that the Grounders have. Mm-hmm. So we'll kind of get on to the last point then, which is the big final decision, the big button press.
The big button press. Season, yeah. As a whole, that's huge, because the whole thing is basically a huge character you're connected with in this season, and his best season by far, Jasper. He like him and Maya or whatever Americans.
This is why no Americans stay past 30 seconds of our podcast.
Yeah. But basically Maya basically she was the whole like thing of what's good on the mountain. You kind of saw her. She was kind of what represented the good of the mountain, and you could see through her that she kind of showed that there was other people that were just as good as her. And the whole thing is Clark had made an alliance with those people on the mountain that they did her solid. But what does she do? She does what Lexa did to her, and she betrays them, and does what's good for her people. So we basically see a contradiction, which not everyone can see right away, because it's kind of something you have to search for, is that basically she ends up having to not only betray another one's trust when she felt just as hurt when someone did that to her. She also is like, she's also just, she saw it ends off with her like, paying for the sins of her people, like what President Dante said.
Yeah, pretty much like whereas then she's forced into this like hard decision, and like she essentially becomes she's known in later seasons as the Commander of Death. Yeah. This is when she gets that title, because she essentially
One Hera, isn't it?
One Hera.
One Hera.
Yeah, One Hera. Yeah, with Commander of Death. She gets this title because her, Jasper, and Bellamy decide to flood the Mount Weather with radiation to like kill them all from the outside. Because so obviously everyone that's not been, because some people have been like made immune to it, so like the president's son, Cage, and people like that, and that
there was a small amount of people. Yeah, it was all those immune kind of got killed off slowly as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, well, there was only by the end of the season there was only 2 left, but then obviously Cage gets killed by Lincoln for all the bad shit he did to Lincoln.
Oh, it was kind of rewarding.
What's that soldier's name again?
Lieutenant. It was second I have it somewhere.
Because he becomes a character in season 3 that returns at a point.
He's only in Lieutenant Emerson.
Yeah, Emerson. Yeah, he becomes quite an interesting character.
He was only in one. He's
in a couple episodes.
He's in like 2.
Yeah, but he does some big things in season 3 though. Like he betrays the location of Mount Weather and stuff, and to the ice people.
And he blows up Mount Weather.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, like he helped blow them up, and he also like tries to kill Clark and all her friends in episode 2. That's season 3 stuff, so we won't talk about it too much. But it's this thing of like, this is really the moment where Clark starts to really rue her position in like society. Like she decides at the end of the season, she decides to put herself into like self-imposed exile from the Ark, because from Camp Jaha, which is like where the Ark crashed, like this new settlement,
basically where her people ended up.
Yeah, exactly. So she puts herself into exile because she feels that she only brings hurt and death, and that she can't do it anymore. Like she just needs to live outside of that and like be her own person, because she's just been too much.
It doesn't end as well as the last. The cliffhanger in the last season was better, but this was definitely a better finish.
I actually think that the
season 2 was.
But this is no cliffhanger. But I actually think that the decision at the end of season 2 is so much better than
it was. The whole thing was. But it was just horrible seeing everyone die at the end
of season 2. Oh man, it was actually tough, but like that's what I love about the 100.
It was a huge decision to make, and it was like you actually felt connection to the people in the mountain. You were not just killing off. You weren't just killing off the villains. You were killing off the victims as well.
Yeah, well, they were killing off their own allies. Like, cause, they had made allies. Like mountain people had died because they had tried to help the 100. Yeah, and like so, it's like they had made that sacrifice, and then you have to kill off your own allies, and it's like, are you any better than the Grounders? Not really. Like, at least the Grounders didn't kill you. Like, the Grounders just betrayed you. You not only betrayed those people, but you also killed them horribly. Because it's like dying from the radiation burns, man. Like, I mean, other than like that doctor, the one that came up with the method of taking the blood out of the 100 and making her own people immune to the radiation. Like when she died like a witch, you know, from like the Wicked Witch of the West type thing.
A bucket of water over her head.
Yeah.
As well, like.
Pretty much, she died like that. She essentially melted. Like, other than that death, like, it's actually like watching people die from radiation burns is like, in this show, it's graphic. Like, this season is very graphic. So that's kind of season 2. So
we're going to leave it off there. So basically, guys, what's going to happen is on our next episode will be on is going to be on Thursday,
Thursday or Friday,
because this one is a lot shorter than usual. So on that episode, we're going to it's going to continue on discussing the 100, but we're talking season 3 and season 4. And season 4. So we might throw in a few like predictions for season 5. We might discuss the trailer, we'll see. And to keep up to date with that, just leave a like, subscribe, and
make sure to hit the notifications bar as well, because YouTube is a mess. So.
Yeah, exactly. And leave a comment if you feel like it.
Yeah, just tell us how much you hated this episode and how we can
don't tell them that.
improve it. Yeah, make us feel bad about ourselves. That's what we want.
So peace out.
Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.